How we doing, folks? Rich Van Tassel with you. Today is Thursday, March 16th, 2017. Got a little flash alert. Dwayne Wade for the Chicago Bulls, the guard for the Chicago Bulls, is out for the rest of the season, an elbow fracture. Um, a lot to go with this. The Chicago Bulls, certainly things are not working out for them this year. 32 and 36. They are only a game out of the playoff spot. Behind the Detroit Pistons were 33 and 35. Certainly things are still there to make the playoffs. Dwayne Wade was having a good season. He wasn't. He's clearly not the player he used to be. We know that when he was, back in Miami. He's gotten to the age. He's 35 now. But, he was still putting up over 18 points, just shy of 19 points, was giving you some minutes, almost 30 minutes a game, just at 30 minutes a game. Of late, that had gone down, but you expect that at this point in the season. Chicago, look, they've had their problems. They brought in a lot of mercenaries, I guess, bringing in Rondo, bringing in Dwayne Wade, trying to solve things. Fred Hoiberg's clearly been in battle this season. But this actually may help Chicago moving forward. You are going to give guys like a Denzel Valentine, a guy they drafted, a chance to get some minutes here. You can see what he has. Certainly, there were some injury questions with Denzel Valentine coming into the season, coming into his professional career, finishing up at Michigan State. But a guy who a lot of people like, his basketball IQ, things of that nature. So we'll have to see. He's been able to play thus far this season. But you never know with those injuries. But certainly Chicago has a loaded backcourt. That's been one of their problems, nonetheless, is they've had so many guards. You bring in a Michael Carter-Williams, you bring in a Rajon Rondo, you already have Jimmy Butler, who's more of a forward, but can also play the guard. You traded those guys, now you have a Cameron Payne. Let's see if he'll get more time. But I think Denzel Valentine is the big thing to look at with this season. Dwayne Wade's been one of the more consistent players, however, yet the team's been consistently right at about average this year. As we said, the season has gotten away from the Chicago Bulls. A lot of turmoil. Fred Hoiberg also has a lot to answer for, I think. I don't know if he'll be around come the end of the season. We'll have to see what happens. As far as their potential to make the playoffs, though, it becomes very interesting now because no one is running away with that spot. Even the Miami Heat, as well as they've played, going 23 and 5, they're still tied with the Pistons, but on the outside looking in of the playoffs, but essentially the same record, so they're essentially at the 8th spot. Other than them, Charlotte has just completely, gone off the rails. I don't see them making the playoffs. Milwaukee is certainly surging, but they're in the 7th spot already, so the 8th spot is still certainly up for grabs. Detroit has been right at about 500, a little below 500 at times, maybe a game above 500 at other times, so they've not, run away with it. Miami, you clearly, as far as I'm concerned, Milwaukee and Miami are going to get those final 2 spots, but you can't discount Chicago. You certainly can't discount Detroit at this point. Detroit was in the playoffs last year. But now that Dwayne Wade is out, you're still losing a veteran guy. You're losing one of your best scorers. Regardless of what's gone on in Chicago, he's been consistent for you. Now, like we said, this, Chicago may not even be looking to make the playoffs at this point. They may just mail it in. Do they really want to be the 8th seed? You never know. Those are always things that come into play. They may try to get into the draft lottery. They're not going to get, too far in it. They would still have to really do poorly just to move down a spot because they're 3 games ahead of the Charlotte Hornets, 5 games ahead of the New York Knicks. In the Eastern Conference, certainly in the West, even that, there's not many teams that they could fall behind. You look at the Portland Trail Blazers, who are 9th in the West, would be the last team. They have about a 1.5 game advantage on them. So Chicago's really between a rock and a hard place. Unless you just say we're going to try to lose every game, which is still hard to do, and I don't really condone that. Chicago is essentially where they are. They might as well try to make the playoffs. But Dwayne Wade, as we said, out with an elbow fracture for the rest of the season. Going to be a lot of minutes for Denzel Valentine. Certainly Dwayne Wade on a 2-year contract. They need to develop Denzel Valentine moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. But let's see what happens with Chicago. Will this, help them getting a guard, out of the lineup, basically freeing other things up so they have, a little more room. Will clearly free things up for the younger guy like Denzel Valentine. But as far as moving forward, will that help their offense flourish? We'll have to see. Dwayne Wade still needs the ball a lot to make things happen. He has to touch the ball a lot of times to put up those numbers. As we said, he's just under 30 minutes per game. Let's see how many shots he was taking for the season. He's shooting only 43%, which isn't great. He's still averaging 16 shots a game. So I would expect, a guy who's shooting 43%, and not even putting up 20 or 43% on 16 shots, that may help their offense. Again, they're in a position where it's going to be hard to tank. Do they really want the 8 spot? Things to keep an eye on. But certainly, I think the biggest thing for the Chicago Bulls moving forward is going to be the development of Denzel Valentine, because Dwayne Wade is an older guy. They may be looking to clean house come the end of the season anyway. So that's the most important thing. All right, we'll check you all come the weekend. Remember, we got to do the weekly NBA reports. The Celtics report, of course, going to try to see if we can do a player focus, look at something, storylines that's going on in the NBA as we come down the home stretch. And remember, we appreciate all subscriptions as well. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time. Thanks.